The best investment you can make as a leader is in yourself and your team. Join Maxwell Leadership for Day to Grow, a full-day conference in Orlando, Florida, featuring some of today's most sought-after experts and thought leaders.
I don't want to be a motivational speaker. I want to be a motivational teacher. You see, a motivational speaker makes you feel good, but the next day you don't know why. A motivational teacher makes you feel good, but the next day you know why, because they give you resources and tools and practice.
If you're passionate about personal growth, development, your team, and growing them, you do not want to miss Day to Grow.
Malcolm Gladwell has been called one of the 100 most influential people in the world by Time magazine. Since becoming a staff writer for The New Yorker in 1996, he has written 7 New York Times bestsellers, and in 2011, he was appointed to Canada's second highest order of honor. 4-time Olympian Shantae Lowe is a world record-holding high jumper and gold medalist who has inspired millions with her story of triumphing over adversity on platforms like ESPN and the Oprah Winfrey Network. Chris Robinson is an international speaker and executive coach who leads a team of more than 50,000 speakers, trainers, and coaches worldwide.
The masses lead lives of quiet desperation, but they go to the grave with their song inside. It is my vision that not a single person that can hear my voice goes to the grave with that song inside.
John Gordon has written 15 bestsellers, including The Energy Bus, The Power of Positive Leadership, and The Carpenter. His clients include Dell, Publix, Southwest Airlines, and several NFL, NBA, and MLB coaches and championship teams. Michael Jr. brings laughter and encouragement to audiences all over the world as he inspires audiences to discover and activate their purpose.
So it started out, people would ask weird questions. Michael Jr., what should I do here? What should I do there? And I realized we're asking the wrong question, because they were asking what, but the question they really should be asking is why, because when you understand your why, you have more options for what, but your why never changes.
International speaker Valerie Burton is the founder of the Coaching and Positive Psychology Institute, as well as a best-selling author of 13 books coaching women and ambitious individuals toward their best lives.
If we want to be resilient, we need to be as supportive of ourselves as we are of the people we care about. You see, we are often far more kind to our friends and to our family members than we are to ourselves.
Serial entrepreneur and business expert Brandon Dawson serves as CEO and managing partner of Grant Cardone's business consulting firm Cardone Ventures. He has spent the last 30 years in the business space, starting, scaling, and selling businesses, and now helps organizations of all sizes reach their goals.
Come and see us on Day to Grow. I will promise you this. You come and bring your team, and at the end of the day, you'll come up and shake my hand and say, one of the best days I've ever invested in for myself and for my team. I'll see you there.
so good to see you. You can be seated. That was very kind of you to stand. I hope that you have been growing today. I hope that you've been learning a lot today. We are getting ready to go on a little bit of a journey of what we call chasing failure, which on the onset is like, why in the world would we want to move towards the thing that we often fear? But here's what I've discovered. Now, every single person you look up to, read about, admire, they've all experienced the same thing. They all have the same thing in common. They have all failed, yet we've all been told to steer away from the very thing that made them who they are. In fact, I believe we were all told growing up, failure is not an option. But just touch some sky if you've ever failed. Just raise your hand, okay? Hey, it's an option, okay? Just look around. And I believe for us to grow as leaders, you and I have to have a healthy relationship with failure. We have to have a healthy relationship with rejection. We have to have a healthy relationship with trying some things that are outside of our comfort zone. And what I want you to know is that the fear of failure is something that you absolutely were not born with. It's actually somewhat unnatural for all of our makeup. Now, you can think about any fear that you've had growing up, whether it's the fear of public speaking, whether it's the fear of spiders or sharks. I could just tell you my biggest fear growing up was the fear of camping, okay? Now, I don't know, do I look like I go camping? Like, you gotta know your lane, you know what I'm saying? I don't know that I'm gonna survive well out there. But it's really not the fear of camping. It's more the fear of bears. If you're not afraid of bears, I don't know why you're not afraid of bears. But I'll never forget going to Nashville to speak one day, and I walk into this hotel, and all of a sudden, I see this sign in the hotel lobby. Don't feed the bears. I looked at this lady, I said, oh, what's going on? Why is this sign here? Why do you need to tell me? I don't need this information. I just want to know why the sign is in here inside the lobby. She said, well, sometimes the bears walk up and people try and feed them. Ma'am, do I look like I would try to feed a bear today? Like, what is going on? She said, if you see a bear, just call me. Ma'am, no offense, you 5'2". If I got to put my money on you or the bear, I'm taking my money on the bear. We all gonna die today, okay? Like, I have a healthy fear of bears. Hey, here's the deal. Regardless of what your biggest fear is, did you know we were only born with two? We were born with the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. That's it. Any other fear that you and I have was caught or taught. We had a moment in our life where we said, you know what, somebody just rejected me. Somebody told me no, and it just didn't feel good. And I just got to tell you, the number one fear that will hold you back in your business, the number one fear that will hold you back in your life is the fear of failure. So today we're going to go to failure school. I believe failure teaches a class that success never could. Today I'm going to give us 6 lessons I've learned from chasing failure. Lesson number 1 is this. There's no version of our leadership that isn't risky. There's no version of our leadership that isn't risky. Some of us think, no, I'm just going to play it safe. But when you play it safe, you risk just as much as playing it risky. It's all risky. I love what Craig Rochelle says. He says it like this. He says, failure is the tuition you pay for success. It's how you even get in the door. And leaders risk failure when trying something new, but they also risk irrelevance when they don't. And so what you got to know is I talk to leaders all the time in our executive coaching practices like, Ryan, like we've had success going this direction for a very, very long time, and we just don't want to change. But guess what? The world changed. And if you don't, you will become irrelevant. I talk to parents about this all the time because they just think that the way that their kids are educated is just the way that all kids should be educated. I'm like, man, it's all risky. And I talk to the first group of parents, and they say, Ryan, I'm sick of this education system. I'm going to homeschool my kid. That's cool. But have you ever met a homeschool kid? It's risky. I'm just saying, okay? Like, what the risk is that they could grow up socially awkward. I'm not saying that they are socially awkward, and if you were homeschooled, I'm not even saying you are socially awkward. I'm saying your parents rolled the dice. That's all I'm saying, okay? It was a risk, okay? And then you talk to the next parents, and they go, huh, Ryan, put our kids in private school. That's cool. You ever met a private school kid? Listen. The risk is that they grow up entitled. Here's the deal. Like, I went to a private school, but there is a risk that they could grow up thinking that they just going to be balling out of control their whole life, and then they have to get a real job, and they find out that the world is different than what they thought. So I'm just saying it's risky. And then you talk to the parents and say, Ryan, we good with the public school. You ever met a public school kid? They going to jail. It's all risky, okay? It's all risky. Like, some of us just think that our way is the way. No, it's our way. So there's somebody that might be doing something that you've never done before. You go, man, I'm just not sure it's going to work. Well, guess what? Somebody had to be brave enough to try it. Now, here's the deal. Naturally, I'm a risk taker. One of the biggest risks I ever took was when I asked my girlfriend to marry me. Now, this is a picture of my wife. I know what you all are thinking. How in the world did he get her? Let me explain. When my girlfriend and I were dating, I overheard her tell a friend that she thought it would be cool to get engaged and married on the same day. I had absolutely no idea what that meant, so I guessed and began planning our wedding behind her back over the course of 2 years. Now, I was in 11 weddings before I was ever in my own. Apparently, I was a good friend in college because people I barely knew were asking me to be in their wedding, okay? Nevertheless, at each wedding, I would bring my girlfriend and I would take copious notes on what she liked and didn't like trying to put this wedding together. The 11th wedding was 3 weeks before this surprise engagement and wedding that I had planned, and the groom walks up to me and he says, hey, I hear you're doing a surprise wedding. I said, keep your voice down. It's a surprise, brother. And then he says, hey, man, whatever you do, don't mess up the cake. I said, man, it's just cake, man. You tripping. He's like, no. Trust me. Do not mess up the cake. I said, hey, Bayo, what you think about this cake? She goes, it's all right. I got a better one on Pinterest. I didn't know what Pinterest was. So I go to Pinterest, and I type in my girlfriend's name at the time, and all of a sudden a board pops up entitled My Dream Wedding, and it had 224 photos of everything that she would want in a wedding. And I thought to myself, this would have been helpful 2 years ago. Nevertheless, June 7, 2013, I get down on one knee. I say, Amanda, will you marry me? She said, yes. I said, just kidding. Will you marry me today? And we opened up a lounge room door, and about 85 of our family and friends were standing in there with a sign that said, today! We rolled in a dress, hairstylist, makeup artist, everything that you would need to get engaged and married on the same day. We were engaged for a real long time, a solid 11 hours, okay? Had a buddy film the whole thing. We just wanted to show some friends, put it up on this website called YouTube, and it went viral. It got about 1.5 million views. It's called The Surprise Wedding. And so when people watch The Surprise Wedding, the number one question people ask me is, what if she said no? Which is a really great question when you've got a wedding on the heels of an engagement. But here's the deal. That's not just the question that I face. That's the question that anybody trying to do anything brave faces every single day. It's not what if she said no. It's what if they say no? What if my team doesn't like it? What if our customers don't like it? And you can spend so much energy thinking about this question. And what I want you to know today as a leader is the same amount of energy that you spend thinking about this question is the same amount of energy you could spend thinking about this one. What if they say yes? What if it goes well? There is something powerful about a leader that envisions themselves winning that leads them to actually winning. So here's the deal. There's no version of your leadership that isn't risky. If you try it, it's risky. If you don't try it, it's also risky. So you might as well be the kind of leader that exuberates bravery, and at least a team that is following you says, you know what? I'll walk through a wall with them because they're not afraid to try things. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. But every single time, you can learn something.
The best investment you can make as a leader is in yourself and your team. Join Maxwell Leadership for Day to Grow, a full-day conference in Orlando, Florida, featuring some of today's most sought-after experts and thought leaders.
I don't want to be a motivational speaker. I want to be a motivational teacher. You see, a motivational speaker makes you feel good, but the next day you don't know why. A motivational teacher makes you feel good, but the next day you know why, because they give you resources and tools and practice.
If you're passionate about personal growth, development, your team, and growing them, you do not want to miss Day to Grow.
Malcolm Gladwell has been called one of the 100 most influential people in the world by Time magazine. Since becoming a staff writer for The New Yorker in 1996, he has written 7 New York Times bestsellers, and in 2011, he was appointed to Canada's second highest order of honor. 4-time Olympian Shantae Lowe is a world record-holding high jumper and gold medalist who has inspired millions with her story of triumphing over adversity on platforms like ESPN and the Oprah Winfrey Network. Chris Robinson is an international speaker and executive coach who leads a team of more than 50,000 speakers, trainers, and coaches worldwide.
The masses lead lives of quiet desperation, but they go to the grave with their song inside. It is my vision that not a single person that can hear my voice goes to the grave with that song inside.
John Gordon has written 15 bestsellers, including The Energy Bus, The Power of Positive Leadership, and The Carpenter. His clients include Dell, Publix, Southwest Airlines, and several NFL, NBA, and MLB coaches and championship teams. Michael Jr. brings laughter and encouragement to audiences all over the world as he inspires audiences to discover and activate their purpose.
So it started out, people would ask weird questions. Michael Jr., what should I do here? What should I do there? And I realized we're asking the wrong question. Because they're asking what, but the question they really should be asking is why. Because when you understand your why, you have more options for what, but your why never changes.
International speaker Valerie Burton is the founder of the Coaching and Positive Psychology Institute, as well as a best-selling author of 13 books coaching women and ambitious individuals toward their best lives.
If we want to be resilient, we need to be as supportive of ourselves as we are of the people we care about. You see, we are often far more kind to our friends and to our family members than we are to ourselves.
Serial entrepreneur and business expert Brandon Dawson serves as CEO and managing partner of Grant Cardone's business consulting firm Cardone Ventures. He has spent the last 30 years in the business space, starting, scaling, and selling businesses, and now helps organizations of all sizes reach their goals.
Come and see us on Day to Grow. I will promise you this. You come and bring your team, and at the end of the day, you'll come up and shake my hand and say, one of the best days I've ever invested in for myself and for my team. I'll see you there.
All the way from Portland, Oregon, here to share her story and empower leaders in their individual passions and purpose. Liz believes that having a beginner's mindset with the courage to pivot, progress, and innovate can be a transformational component of building a successful business. From building a sustainable fashion brand that creates educational and economic opportunities for women and girls in East Africa, to navigating the obstacles of running a business during a global pandemic, Liz is uniquely qualified to challenge and reorient our understanding about good business. Her book, Beginner's Pluck, named a Forbes 2021 must-read, shares her journey of pursuing a dream with humility and zeal. Here to push us toward a better tomorrow, please welcome to the IMC stage, Liz Bohannon.
What a room. Oh my gosh. gosh, I am so excited to be here. What a room of hype, people. Just the hooting, the hollering with this little sizzle reel. How about that little sizzle reel? That was nice, right? And I have to say, everything in it, I can verify it's true. It was accurate. However, if it was really more kind of holistically true, probably about 52 of those 60 seconds wouldn't have been dedicated to the highlights and to the successes, right? They would have talked about the failures and the mistakes and the wrong turns along the way, because we know that those two things always go together. So because the Maxwell team perhaps mercifully did not include those in the sizzle reel, and because I have the mic until they take it away, I just want to level set. I just want to level set with y'all so we just kind of have a better holistic picture, okay? In the early days of starting my sustainable fashion brand called Seiko Designs, I was living out of my car. Before you feel bad for me, I'll tell you what kind of car it was. It was a Honda Element. Has anybody ever seen a Honda Element? Okay, well, if you haven't, but you have been riding on the highway and you look and you're like, wow, that looks like a giant toaster on wheels. That's a Honda Element. So I was literally living out of my car, sleeping in McDonald's parking lots, Walmart parking lots, and I was traveling the United States of America with the sole purpose of trying to launch this brand. I was sharing this story. I was hosting trunk shows in people's living rooms. I was going door to door, knocking on small boutique owners' stores, trying to get them to carry my product, which at the time was only a line of interchangeable sandals. They were leather sandals that had these different fabric straps. And so as part of my tour to try to launch this company, I was up in Portland, Oregon. And through a friend of a friend of a friend, I was able to score a lunch meeting with the global head of supply chain at a huge sportswear company. I'm not going to tell you the name of the company to protect the innocent. Just kidding, it was Columbia Sportswear. We're all friends, right? So I get this meeting with the global head of supply chain at Columbia Sportswear, and I'm super nervous because I'm so new in this industry. Like, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to hold a conversation. And so Tuesday rolls around, and here I am in this, nice-ish restaurant with this 50-year-old guy who was nice enough to spend like a few hours of community service with me. And we're talking about the supply chain when he asked me a really specific question about my cost of goods in Uganda, where I was doing my manufacturing, compared to Asia, where his company does most of their manufacturing. Well, luckily for me, I had actually just done some research on this exact same thing, okay? Now, my research simply consisted of hopping online and going to this website. Anybody know what this is? Okay, a fair amount of you do, because it's one of the biggest websites in the entire world. It's like Amazon, but for Chinese factories, okay? I now know, and I will never forget for the rest of my life, that the way that you say this website is Alibaba.com. Got it? Alibaba.com. So I'm actually feeling pretty good when he asked me this really specific question, and I have an answer for him, and I answer him, and he honestly looks kind of surprised with how quickly and confidently I answered him. And so then he follows up, and he goes, wow, how do you know that? Where did you find that information? You know when you're reading a book and you come across a character's name that you don't totally know how to pronounce, but you don't really think that much about it, right? You kind of just go with the first thing that pops in your head. Has anybody ever done this? Okay, right. Like when I was reading Harry Potter, in my head, it was Hermione. And then I saw the movie and I realized, like, oh, it's Hermione. But when you're reading, you don't think that much about it. You're not trying, so you just go with the first thing that pops in your head for the whole rest of the book. Well, I did that with Alibaba.com. For all I cared, it was just like some random Chinese website that I had no intention of ever talking about out loud. So when this very important executive asked me this question, I very confidently and quickly answered him without mentally processing it one iota before I looked this guy in the eye and I said, oh, I found it on Alabia.com. Yeah. You heard me. Alabia.com. Perhaps what is worse is that even once I said it, I didn't really recognize it. It just like, I was so used to saying it that way, it just kind of felt right. So as one does after they answer a simple question with a simple statement, I just stared at him and waited for him to respond. He stared back at me, a little bit bewildered. The silence kind of continued, and I started thinking, oh gosh, he just must be pretty impressed with me. You know, like just a supply chain savant knowing all of these facts and figures and how to use the internet. And the silence kind of goes on, and it's actually starting to get a little uncomfortable. So I'm like, oh my gosh, now I got to do this guy a favor, keep the conversation going. So like, I guess I ask him a question, and I look at this guy and I go, hey, Tom, have you ever used alabia.com? His head kind of drops, and he just looks so befuddled. He does not know what to do. And then he looks up at me, kind of resigned, and he just goes, well, Liz, I try to stay off websites like that at work. And y'all, I still didn't get it. I'm like, why can't he use a material sourcing website at work? I didn't get it until probably like 5 minutes later. Has that happened, y'all? When you have like an awkward social situation, and you know something went off, but you don't quite know what it was, but then your brain is still processing in the background. So like 5 minutes later, we've moved on to something else, when all of a sudden I'm like, oh, Maya. And I realized what had happened, and so then I just have this delayed panic attack, right? Where it's like, I'm starting to blush, my heart is racing, I start getting pit stains the size of Lake Michigan, and I wish that I could tell you I recovered, but I didn't. I never recovered. The rest of the meeting was a blur, and when I went home to my Honda Element that night, I think I threw that shirt away because, y'all, no laundromat detergent can rid your clothes of the stench of your own humiliation. Listen, it messed with me. I can tell the story now and I can laugh, but these are the moments, right, in our journey that keep us up at night. They make us, we just feel embarrassed, we feel ashamed. I started feeling like I shouldn't have taken that meeting in the first place. I was out of my league. I need to play it safer in the future because the possibility of failure and humiliation is probably inevitable. It rocked my confidence, and these missteps and these mistakes and these failures along the way can do that. And of course, this wasn't my first, it wasn't my last. In fact, I have owned more failures, more failed initiatives than I could ever tell you from stage. What I've learned to do is a few things. One, I talk about them, right? So I had, for instance, a failed project with a specific footwear line I was launching. Y'all, this project bombed so bad due to a disastrous supply chain problem that, by the way, had me getting locked in an Ethiopian shoe factory, potentially for an entire weekend. I don't have time to tell you that story right now. If anybody's free for margaritas later, I'm happy to dish. The project ended up launching, and it failed so miserably that I actually buried a pair of those shoes in my backyard, and I performed a failure's funeral. If you think that I'm joking, this is what a failure funeral looks like. Because here's the thing, I believe that our failures actually deserve the dignity of being talked about, of being memorialized, and of being laid properly to rest. I have now become obsessed with these moments in our journey. These failures, these mistakes, these missteps. I like to call them pluck-ups. Pluck meaning spirited and determined courage. In fact, I now have an entire podcast that is dedicated to talking to some of the world's most successful people. Matthew McConaughey, Ariana Huffington, Marie Forleo, Liz Gilbert, not about their highlights and the successes, because you can hear about that anywhere, but about their mistakes and their failures along the way. Now, when I reflect on my journey, when I think about my labia pluck up, which is a sentence that I hope no one in this room ever has to say, there's one piece of information that I really, really wish that I would have had at the time. I mean, there are two pieces of information. The first would have been how to say Alibaba.com. Would have been really nice. That would have saved me a lot of a headache. But the next piece of information that I wish I would have known in these moments where I'm feeling paralyzed by shame or failure or embarrassment is not that I'm some sort of, idiot who can't be trusted in personal and professional situations and who was never going to be successful. There was a really, really good reason why I was feeling these things. And it is so matter of fact, and it is so simple. And once you learn this, it's going to change everything for you. It's not going to keep you from making mistakes, but it will change everything about how these seasons change you and how it changes how you lead others. I was feeling this way because I was in stage 2 of the learning journey. Stage 2, it's so matter of fact, it's so simple. There are 4 stages of learning, and my guess is that a lot of you in this room know what these stages of learning are. This is very well accepted. I didn't make this up. If you know this, if you've heard this, you've probably seen it illustrated looking something like this. So I'm just going to go through these quickly. Stage 1 is the stage of unconscious incompetence. This is kind of happy-go-lucky. You don't know what you don't know. Then you have a moment of awareness. You get a promotion. You quit your full-time job and you launch your company. You start working with a different echelon of clients. You get a promotion. You have this moment of awareness where all of a sudden, you're still incompetent. Now you're just aware of how incompetent you are. This is called conscious incompetence, and it is the most difficult stage of the learning journey, and it's where so many people quit. It's so hard because in this stage, our egos are super fragile, and our insecurities rage, and frankly, the best advice that we seem to get from a lot of the experts is like, just fake it till you make it. How many of you have heard that before? Which, if you think about it, is actually the shame-re-inducing message. Like, it's embarrassing that you're there, so fake it, move through it as quickly as possible, and get to stage 3 of conscious competence. This is when you've got some reps, okay? You've done it before, you're not a total beginner, you still have to think about it, which is why it's conscious, but just keep practicing. Just keep practicing, and eventually we get to stage 4 of the learning journey. The golden stage of unconscious competence, where we are so good, we could literally do this in our sleep. And this stage is really fun, because from here, we get to be the leaders and the experts and the coaches and the mentors that we dream of being, right? I would actually say, no. What I want you to understand is that this image of the stages of learning, if you internalize this, it's not going to be helpful. It's actually going to keep you from being a leader who grows, who innovates, and who leads others. And here is why. When we internalize this as the image of the stages of learning, what ends up happening when we make it to stage 4, which we will, we actually subconsciously start to act out of fear. We start to act out of fear of losing our place at the top of the almighty mountain, right? And those feelings that you felt down there in stage 2 that were already hard to feel in the first place, once you've achieved mastery and expertise, become even harder to feel. It's embarrassing. It feels like we got knocked down a notch. Maybe it feels like you got found out, like you were kind of faking it all along, and now everybody knows that, right? That's called imposter syndrome. And get this. While you might think it feels really good and lovely on your ego to be seen as a master, as an expert, there was a study recently published in the Journal of Social Psychology that showed that there is a direct positive correlation between your identity as an expert and guess what? Being less curious, less creative, and ultimately less effective in the long run. It's called the hypothesis of earned dogmatism. And it is something that every single leader needs to know and they need to be aware of, because here's the counterintuitive thing, y'all. We have to put just as much time and energy into combating that as we do time and energy in becoming the leaders and the masters and the experts in the first place. We have to understand that the stages of learning are actually a cycle, okay? And that the most transformational leaders aren't the ones that just reach mastery and expertise and then stay there and kind of protect their territory. They are the ones that are intentionally and constantly diving back into stage 2 of the learning journey.
The best investment you can make as a leader is in yourself and your team. Join Maxwell Leadership for Day to Grow, a full-day conference in Orlando, Florida, featuring some of today's most sought-after experts and thought leaders.
I don't want to be a motivational speaker. I want to be a motivational teacher. You see, a motivational speaker makes you feel good, but the next day you don't know why. A motivational teacher makes you feel good, but the next day you know why, because they give you resources and tools and practice.
If you're passionate about personal growth, development, your team, and growing them, you do not want to miss Day to Grow.
Malcolm Gladwell has been called one of the 100 most influential people in the world by Time magazine. Since becoming a staff writer for The New Yorker in 1996, he has written 7 New York Times bestsellers, and in 2011, he was appointed to Canada's second highest order of honor. 4-time Olympian Shantae Lowe is a world record-holding high jumper and gold medalist who has inspired millions with her story of triumphing over adversity on platforms like ESPN and the Oprah Winfrey Network. Chris Robinson is an international speaker and executive coach who leads a team of more than 50,000 speakers, trainers, and coaches worldwide.
The masses lead lives of quiet desperation, but they go to the grave with their song inside. It is my vision that not a single person that can hear my voice goes to the grave with that song inside.
John Gordon has written 15 bestsellers, including The Energy Bus, The Power of Positive Leadership, and The Carpenter. His clients include Dell, Publix, Southwest Airlines, and several NFL, NBA, and MLB coaches and championship teams. Michael Jr. brings laughter and encouragement to audiences all over the world as he inspires audiences to discover and activate their purpose.
So it started out, people would ask weird questions. Michael Jr., what should I do here? What should I do there? And I realized we're asking the wrong question. Because they're asking what, but the question they really should be asking is why. Because when you understand your why, you have more options for what, but your why never changes.
International speaker Valerie Burton is the founder of the Coaching and Positive Psychology Institute, as well as a best-selling author of 13 books coaching women and ambitious individuals toward their best lives.
If we want to be resilient, we need to be as supportive of ourselves as we are of the people we care about. You see, we are often far more kind to our friends and to our family members than we are to ourselves.
Serial entrepreneur and business expert Brandon Dawson serves as CEO and managing partner of Grant Cardone's business consulting firm Cardone Ventures. He has spent the last 30 years in the business space, starting, scaling, and selling businesses, and now helps organizations of all sizes reach their goals.
Come and see us on Day to Grow. I will promise you this. You come and bring your team, and at the end of the day, you'll come up and shake my hand and say, one of the best days I've ever invested in for myself and for my team. I'll see you there.
last thing is day to grow. The next date, I want you to put this date down because on August the 14th, will be our next day to grow. In fact, another good long time friend of mine, Michael Jr. Wasn't Michael Jr. fun this morning? He's just beautiful. And Michael Jr. will be with us on Day to Grow. We're building our lineup next for it. But the date is August 14th. And so get that date in your calendar. Be sure to bring your friends, and we're just going to have another terrific time. So, but now, thank you so much for that. They're going to put on the screen. Last evening I began to teach from my High Road Leadership book, and there are 12 distinguishing characteristics of what a high road leader looks like. And I asked them to put the 6 on the screen that I shared with yesterday. I'm not going to teach them yesterday, but for you that weren't here when I taught it, you can, it's right here. You take a picture of it, and those are the first 6 distinguishing characteristics of a high road leader. That's it. Just use those cameras and get your picture. So those are the first 6. Okay, what do high road leaders do? They bring people together. They value all people. They acknowledge their humanness. They do the right things for the right reasons. They give more than they take, and they develop emotional capacity. So now there are 6 more. Number 7, the 7th distinguishing characteristic of a high road leader is high road leaders place people above their agenda. In other words, high road leaders love serving other people. And they do everything in their power to serve them well and to serve them with excellence. Somebody asked me, and so we're talking very briefly about servant leadership. And somebody asked me about, they said, well, how do I know that when I serve people that it's right and it's legitimate? And I said, it's because it'll be natural for you. I love serving people. I can still remember when I lived in Atlanta, every once in a while I'd be in a restaurant and some person would come to me and they'd say, because we have several companies, and they would know who I was, and they'd say, Mr. Maxwell, I just want you to know that I work for you. Then I'd smile and I'd say, here, sit down for a moment. Let's talk. Let's get acquainted. And I'd find out what their name was. And then I said a couple of things I just want to kind of make sure we're clear on. I said, first of all, you don't work for me. You work with me. We just work together. We don't have titles. We don't have positions. I'll serve you. You'll maybe serve me sometimes. And I said, and by the way, you don't need to call me Mr. Maxwell. My name's John, and I'm your friend. And let me just say this. High road leaders, they're not positional. And they don't feel like they have to power up on people or straighten people out or fix people all the time. They just want to care for people, and they want to serve people. And so high road leaders, they just do a really good, they place people above their own agenda. In other words, when I'm with you, I want to make sure that I serve you. I want to make sure that we do everything that is right for you. I was talking to several young, high potential leaders that we have as guests at this conference, and there was some mentoring stuff that's been going on a little bit. And I said, are we helping you? Are we adding value to you? Servant leaders love serving people. And one of the things I'm so proud about you coaches, listen to me coaches, I'm really proud about this. One of the things I'm really proud about you is you really serve people well. You really care for people. People do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. And high road leaders, they're servant leaders. They place people on their agenda. Number 8, they embrace authenticity. They're very authentic. They're very real. When you see them, you know who they are. They're the same in front of you as they are behind the curtains. And I have really worked hard on always being an authentic person. I don't think people want a perfect leader. I think they want an authentic leader. And I have a teaching that I don't give often, but it's called Live Between the Lines. And when you and I walk in life, there's a left line, that's a ditch, it's failure, and there's a right side, which is success. And sometimes we get successful and get on the right side. Sometimes we fail and we get in the ditch on the left side. But an authentic life is one that's never always in the ditch, or it's never one that's always successful. It's just one who walks down the middle of the road. And let me just tell you something. That's where I am most of the time. I have some losses and failures, and then I have some wins and successes. But most of the time, I just kind of walk down the middle. And I walk down the middle of the road, and it's who I am. And I've got some good. Like I taught in the first session yesterday was, I got some eagle in me, and I soar, and I got some hippo in me. And I like to wallow in mud. And I love to tell you about my eagle days. And I have some of those, and I want you to be eagles, but I also have some hippo days. How many of you have had hippo days in your life? You just get in the mud. You know what I'm saying? It's okay. Look at your person you're sitting beside. You've wanted to say this for years too. Tell them sometimes you're a hippo. Just tell them that. Sometimes you're a hippo. And authenticity, wait, just let me stop for a moment. You're enjoying that one way too much. I'm wanting to teach and get Alyssa out here, and you guys are you've been saying, I've been wanting to call my hippo for a long time. But let me just say another thing about authenticity, because this would be if I was going to really teach something out of this chapter, this is where I'd really dwell. But this is on authenticity stuff. What I'm going to give you want to write down. Every once in a while, I just tell you, you got to get this so. In fact, before you write it down, look at your neighbor and say, "You've got to write this down. You have to write this down. You have to do it." Here we go. This is huge. I'm talking about living an authentic life. Be proud of the choices you make over the gifts that you have. Be proud of the choices you make over or more than the gifts that you have been given. Be proud of your choices. I think this is huge. Every one of us have strengths. Every one of us have God-given gifts in our life. And I had a wonderful mentor who helped me with that many, many years ago when I was in my 30s and things were going well. And he basically sat with me one time and he explained to me, he said, John, you're highly gifted and people say you're amazing, don't they? And I said, well, sometimes they say I'm amazing. And he just helped me so much. He said, that's why we're having the mentoring session today. He said, because people say you're amazing. And he said, I just want you to know you're not. He said, there's nothing amazing about you. He said, what's amazing are the gifts that you have. Your gifts are amazing. God has blessed you incredibly, and you can communicate and you can lead. And he said, it's your gifts that are amazing. And he said, let me explain something to you. You can't take any pride in that. They're gifts. God gave them to you. You didn't earn them. You didn't deserve them. And then he wanted to come back to the fact I wasn't amazing, so he repeated it. But he decided to say it a different way. He said, in fact, you're not only not amazing, John, he said, you're one step from stupid. He just knew how to get my attention. I wish he had said a block or a mile. One step seems awful close. But he said, when people tell you you're amazing, they've heard you speak or whatever. Be kind, thank them. But he said, listen to me, they've got you confused with your gifts. Your gifts are amazing. Now listen to it. Now let's go back to that thought I gave you. Be proud of your choices. Much more than your gifts. Because you didn't earn your gifts. But when you make choices, you made those choices. Let me give you number 9. High road leaders take accountability for their actions. High road leaders are willing to be accountable. Don't you wish our leaders in our country would be accountable for their actions? Wouldn't it be refreshing to have them be accountable for the stupid things they do to the people? Let me tell you, they wouldn't be near as selfish if they had to be accountable. By the way, how many of you want to just improve your life? Let me just see it. I mean, it's not a trick question. Never had. Okay, let me tell you something. The greatest way to improve your life is to be accountable to someone. I do better when people help me do better. And accountability is absolutely huge because accountability closes the gap between intention and results. If you're not accountable, you can say, well, I intend to do that. I didn't get to that yet, but yeah, I'm going to get there. But the moment you become accountable, you're not accountable for intentions, you're accountable for results. See, we judge others by their actions, but we judge ourselves by our intentions. And when you become accountable, it will cut all that stuff out. And everybody needs to be accountable to someone, because, well, it's like my mentor said to me one time. He looked at me and said, John, I don't trust you. And it kind of hurt. I said, wow, that hurts a little bit. He said, well, don't take it personal. I don't trust me either. I need to have somebody that'll hold me accountable. And so I had an accountability partner for about 20 years, and he would ask me every month when we got together. He'd ask me 5 questions, and they were always the same questions. And question 1, 2, 3, 4, and then he'd get to question number 5, and question number 5 was the biggie. Question number 5 is, have you lied about any of the previous 4 questions? And you know what? There were times when I said, I go back to 3. Yeah, go back to 3. High road leaders, they're accountable for their actions. Number 10, we're doing so good.